Guys, the word of the Lord today is He's calling you out. He's calling you out. He's calling you out of darkness into His marvelous light. There are many people that's praying for God to save people, praying for God to change things, praying for God to save you as you run inside a burning house. Save me, Lord. You know the house is on fire because you've been burned before. You know the house is on fire because you see it on fire. Yet you still want to go in because there's something, someone special to you that you're going to go in. You want to risk it all. But Lord, cover me. You see a train coming on the tracks, but Lord, protect me while I risk myself to get this person. God is calling you out. God is calling you out. Many of you are in dangerous situations in relationships. You're in toxic relationships, in friendships, in relationships. God is calling you out of places where, listen, there's no more growth here. He's calling you into something bigger. He's calling you into ministry. He has spoken to your spirit. But yet, because it's what you're familiar with, you're staying there. But I hear God says He's calling you out. He's calling you out of darkness. He's calling you out of those things that's held you captive and continues to hold you captive and keeps you in the cycle of destruction. It keeps you in the cycle where you can't get things done. It keeps you in the cycle of you go back to ground zero every time. It's a cycle where every time you're putting yourself to move forward, He comes back into your life. She comes back into your life, and you forget everything that the Lord has spoken to you, all the steps that you have taken, where He brought you from, and you go back to ground zero. But I hear God saying there's going to be a time that you're not going to be able to come back. So God needs you to step out. Step out. Step out. One of the things I hear the Lord talking about is ministries. Step out of these ministries, these dead ministries. They don't want to grow. They want to stay in the same rut. They want to stay as they are. They're comfortable with things as they are. You are considered problematic if you try to introduce anything new, any type of new teaching that lines up with the word of God. They don't want that. They like the tradition and they like all the Christian and the religious ways of doing things. But God says He's calling you out of that. But the thing is, a lot of you are fearful. When you don't recognize something, you get scared. When Peter saw Jesus, the disciples saw Him on the water, they didn't recognize Him and they were frightened. But of course, Peter's like, Lord, let me come out there with you. And he came out that boat and he was walking on the water, the ship. As long as he focused on Jesus, he was staying above water. He wasn't sinking. Many of you, your norms, this relationship, this church, this ministry, this situation, this job, this city, it's what you're used to. That's like your boat. And God calling you out and saying, okay, it's time to step out. You need to leave this relationship. You need to get out of here. To you, that's like the waves tossing to and fro, and you can't imagine yourself, oh no, that's too much, and you're fearful of it because you don't recognize it. You don't recognize that it's the Lord calling you out into the deep. Come on out. If you focus on me, I will take you places. If you focus on me, I will give you joy unspeakable. If you focus on me, I will bring the right individuals to you to help you to build your ministry. I will listen. All it takes is one. God keeps saying in my spirit, all it takes is one. Just like with Joseph, all it took was one person to mention him to the Pharaoh, and all it took was one Pharaoh, one king to change his life forever. Change his life forever. And God is saying all it's going to take is one. And it's going to be somebody that's going to come from, you don't even know him. The most unlikely person, because God said that's how I operate. God is calling you out of the comfort zone. God is calling you out of the toxic relationships. My brothers and sisters, I saw something on Facebook today, and it was a ABC, it was a news thing, and it was showing this little clip about a serial killer. And I want to say his name was Samuel Little. I had his first name wrong. But they arrested him originally for about 3 murders, and then he confessed to 93. And in it was about 5 or 7 minutes long. So it was like little excerpts. You could tell they cut it up. And he's talking about how he managed to kill these women and where he met them at. You know, a lot of them he met in a club. A lot of them he just met, you know, there's somebody somewhere shooting up drugs and hanging out in, you know, a little spot in Vegas or whatever. But a lot of these places, my brothers and sisters, where he was able to meet these women were in a lot of places that, you know, in hours that it was probably not safe for them to be out. But as we know, people can also get killed, mind their business, coming home from church, right? So two things that happened. There were 2 instances where he still managed to kill a woman. And he had picked her up and they were hanging out. And then at that point, they were somewhere and he got arrested. The police came as they were at a gas station. They must have ran his tags or something, and they arrested him. He had not yet been arrested for murder yet. So they picked him up for something, some other petty crime he had done. So they arrested him right there on the spot. Now the lady who was with him, she had been high or whatever, so she stayed living in his car in the same parking lot or parking spot where they were at. Okay, and the owner was like, call the police, because she was pretty much loitering, right? So the police came, arrested her, took her to the station. At that point, they were setting him loose. He waited around for her. She went with him, got in the car, he drove her somewhere, and he murdered her. Another situation with another person, something happened. They were sitting somewhere, police came up, knocked on the window or whatever, told them they needed to go. All right? But my point that I'm trying to make here, with these 2 women, the police came. It was like knock, knock, warning, and they moved, right? But the one that I wanted to talk about was when they arrested this man. This man had intended to kill her at that moment, that day. But he got arrested. He was removed from her, right? But she stayed in his car because she high on drugs and she was doing whatever. She stayed in his vehicle, and he went to jail, and they kept him and they booked him and they processed him and they let him out. And because she stayed right there, she also got picked up, was sent there, but because it was just for loitering, she got whatever, and she was out that same day, joined up again with that serial killer that she didn't know was a serial killer, who was able to continue off where he was able to pick up from where he left off, take her to this place, killed her, murdered her, and threw her in some bushes. What is the whole point of what I'm trying to tell you? There's a lot of you, God is trying to remove you. He has removed the person, but you're still waiting on him. God has removed you from this situation, but you're still going back looking for it. When that man got arrested, he planned to kill her. When he got arrested, that was her window to go. But her mindset wasn't right, so she stayed, and he was able to get booked, come out, and then kill her. Now, some of you may not be in anything be so close to that, but my brothers and sisters, these days you never know what's going on in somebody else's head. So what I'm trying to tell you is, when God is trying to remove you from something, you need to move. When you are given that opportunity to go, you need to go. Because God sees something that's coming. He sees something that's coming. And so that's the message. It's time to move. It's time to go, my brothers and sisters. He's calling you out of darkness into his marvelous light. And you need to obey him. You need to obey him, because some of you are not going to get another opportunity. Some of you, you're going to keep going back to what you know. And guess what? That's going to be the last thing you ever know. Some of you are going to keep going back to what you know, and you will never be the same and never be able to come back to Christ. So I hear God saying, this is a time to obey. This is a time to move. This is time to step out on faith. This is a time to step out in ministries. This is a time to step out and leave these places that can find you. Leave these places that's no good for you. Leave these circles that have you just pinned and in a vice, because he's giving you a way out. And you just need to take that and go with it. The Lord says, I'm calling you out of darkness into my marvelous light. This is a time to move, 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 step out, break it off. Some of you, especially singles, I see lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of single folks that you have yourself tied up in things. Toxic relationships with a man, with a woman, that they continue to put you through the spiral. And the Lord is saying you need to move when he's telling you to move. Because some of you, you're going to end up committing murder. Some of you going to end up committing suicide. Some of you going to end up going to jail for battery assault. Because in some cases, it's going to this point. And God is saying he's giving you a way out of no way. He's giving you a way. You need to step out no matter what it looks like. Please obey the word of the Lord. Trust God. This is the word of the Lord today.